We're joined by the Border Security and Asylum Minister, Alex Norris, who's here with us. Great to have you. I just want to start off, if I may, with the flights, right? Because for an awful lot of people watching this morning, we've had them emailing us, messaging us, people stranded, and they're really, really worried. So far, we've chartered one plane to help people trapped in the Middle East. It was supposed to leave Oman last night at 7 p.m. What happened?
Well, first of all, Sophie, thanks for having me. We are aware of the stresses people are living under. We want to help them leave if they want to. There have been a number of commercial flights that have gone yesterday. We have chartered a flight, as you say, out of Oman that wasn't able to leave last night for operational reasons. We expect that to be leaving today. We expect there to be multiple more flights following that. So I know people are feeling stressed. Our people are on the ground, including at the airport, helping them, support them through that. We've helped them, make sure they've found hotel rooms that we've paid for, to support them through that process. I know it's frustrating, but these things obviously are fast moving and do take a little time to stand up.
So you say that it was delayed for operational regions. Passengers have told Sky News that there were delays to check in. They finally got on the plane where they stayed for an hour and a half, and then they had to get off again because there's rumours that the pilot ended up going over his hours. I mean, it sounds like a comedy sketch if it wasn't so serious.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't characterise it as a comedy sketch. We appreciate the seriousness of it. I know it's stressful. That's why we've got the support on the ground that we've put in place. We know those people want to leave, so of course we'll give them the opportunity to rebook on.
Is that true? Because this is what multiple passengers and sources are telling us, that there was delays to check in, they got on the plane, came up. So it sounds like it was just, you say operational regions, but it sounds a bit more, I guess, kind of mundane than that.
Well, I mean, the operational is often mundane. We have to get people onto a plane, or people on the airside have to get onto the plane. There were challenges with that process.
Is what I just said, is that correct?
I wouldn't want to go any further on the rumours, but what I can tell you today was, there were delays in getting passengers on board, and that was part of the operational challenges. We want that flight to get off the ground today. That's what we're working towards. There are more flights scheduled as well as the work that commercial operators are doing. Some 1,000 were able to get out the UAE yesterday on 8 flights. So we appreciate the seriousness of it. We're doing our bit. We're making sure those charter flights are available, and crucially, that support on the ground is there.
Looking at our military response, we're sending HMS Dragon, a single warship, to Cyprus. When is that expected to arrive in Cyprus?
So, I can't comment on the movement of, a very important part of our defensive capabilities. We've been clear from the start that we're going to defend British interests in the regions. Over the weeks, we've been building up air defence systems, our radar systems, our F-35s, and I think viewers will know the impact that that's had in recent days. We are augmenting it with HMS Dragon. I think that's a matter of record. We are augmenting that with Wildcat helicopters as well, but you wouldn't expect me to talk about their movements.
I do understand, but at the same time, it feels like we're in a situation where the Oman plane hasn't left the runway. HMS Dragon, isn't going to get there until, at least a week after the war started. I mean, it looks a bit like Dad's army at the minute.
No, that can't be right. Again, I would point you and I'd point viewers to the impact that our defensive capabilities have had in the region already. We've been resolute that we will protect British interests. And, once we saw Iran act in the way that it did, of course, we would have to respond. And we've done that. And we're building up that capacity as we have been doing so for some weeks. So, no, I can't accept that.
OK. Can I ask you about the dramatic news that we've had about the Iranian warship being sunk by the United States? Now, 87 people killed on board. The controversy is that it happened in the Indian Ocean, near to Sri Lanka. Do you think that is acceptable in international waters?
Well, those are matters for those who are involved in the offensive war against Iran. That is not what we're doing. We've made the assessment from the outset that it's not in the interest of the British people to fight an offensive war, but we will protect our interests, and that's what we're focused on.
Can I ask a slightly different way? Is it within the normal realms of warfare that you sink ships in international waters?
Well, I'm not a commentator on these affairs. This is a matter for sovereign nations as to how they act and the accountability. I'm accountable for what we do as a nation. We're defending British interests, and I think people can see the impacts of that.
OK. I'm keen as well just to talk a little bit about, I guess I'm trying to get to how the government is feeling about this conflict and what role you want to play in it. Because there was an article by Tim Shipman, the journalist in The Spectator, saying that Keir Starmer did actually think there was a case for the US using the Diego Garcia airbase at the very beginning. But he couldn't carry his cabinet. He was blocked by Ed Miliband, Rachel Reeves and Yvette Cooper. Do you recognise that?
I mean, I have to be a bit careful, Sophie, because this was National Security Council.
Yeah.
It's covered by Official Secrets Act, but I wasn't there, so that probably gives me a degree of forbearance. I can tell viewers that reporting's not true.
Okay.
You know, I think Keir's record, actually, over the years would probably suggest to people that wouldn't quite sound right, but that's not right.
So which bit of it isn't right? And look, I know I don't want to. You know, the only reason I'm asking about this is because it is kind of important, as I think you recognise. So what isn't true, or all of it? Or...
Well, what is true is what's in the public domain already, and that Keir's made very, very clear to Parliament and to the nation that he was not taking us into an offensive war in the Middle East because it's not in our interests. Okay. But he absolutely would protect our interests in the region. That's exactly what we've done.
Now, of course, war is one of the biggest drivers of people leaving their homeland, of international migration. Are you expecting to see migration increase because of the Iranian conflict?
I wouldn't run ahead to that. These are early days. I mean, the reality is when people seek sanctuary, they should do so in the first safe country. But we do know, as you know, it's clearly that the impact of conflict, the impact of climate is causing significant movements of people, but I wouldn't run ahead on a specific kind of event. You'll know that we use our aid to support countries to make sure that doesn't happen as much as possible, but we'll see at that point.
And you've got some reforms today on illegal migration specifically. What are you doing?
Well, we support 107,000 people who are seeking refuge in this country. It is right that we find a balance between the taxpayer and the individual. Some of those people can work, some of those people have means. When they do so, they should contribute to their support or support themselves outside of government accommodation, just as my own constituents do. So we're announcing those reforms today, tabling that legislation to drive that forward.
I'm just asking about the politics of this, because there will be some in your party who are uncomfortable with some of the migration reforms. But I guess, in a way, you know, backbench MPs aren't the important ones are voters. According to YouGov, the Greens are now the most popular party in all age categories under 50. Are you ignoring what voters are telling you about your reforms on immigration?
I mean, first of all, this is not about politics. This is a significant issue. We're at a point where asylum applications in this country were 82,000 last year against an average of the previous decade of 27,500. There is a challenge to fix. We are differentially attractive in this country. That is what we're doing. There's two polarised points. You've got the nightmare under Nigel Farage of Britain never providing sanctuary, which is outside of our values. You've got the fairy tale with the Green Party of open borders. I'm where your viewers are, which is a controlled system that means that those who need refuge get it, and that there's fairness with the British taxpayer. That's what we work in. While backbenchers are passionate about it, I love that passion. I have those conversations with them. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But that's an important part of the democratic process. You know,
just look at the latest polling by YouGov, right? 1 in 4 people who backed Labour in 2024 say they would now vote Green. Only 37% say they would still vote Labour. And I just have been thinking, Tony Blair once said that the real dividing line in politics is how people feel about globalisation. He described it as open and closed, which perhaps shows his own bias slightly, but, whether or not people feel positive towards globalisation or negative, it feels like Labour so far have been trying to get the people who feel negatively about globalisation, who are tempted by reform. And I guess my question is, have you taken your eye off the ball, that the natural Labour voter feels positively about globalisation, and that's why you're shedding those voters to the Green Party?
Yeah, I have to say that isn't part of our calculation. I think, having seen the previous government tear themselves in knots on it, ministers who live day by opinion polls, or even worse, set their policies by opinion polls, that creates real problems because it doesn't serve the nation. My interest is getting to where I know the nation wants on immigration, which is providing refuge to people who have a protection need, but having control so we know who's coming.
So less U-turns when it comes to, focus groups. Tell them that.
Politicians reflecting and changing their mind is a good thing, but, we're resolute in what we're doing and, it's in the British people's interest.
OK, thank you very much.